Welcome to the European VC, your go-to place for insights into the European VC industry. Broadcasting from Portugal, I'm David Cruz Silva.
And from Denmark, I'm Andreas Marc Lohrmann.
Together, we are your hosts for today's episode. If you would like to suggest topics or guests for future episodes, please do reach out to us at LinkedIn or at theeuropeanvc.com. If you're about to raise an international round, let us know and we'll be happy to introduce you to relevant VCs.
Today, we are joined by Marc Lohrmann, Managing Partner of Vesalius Biocapital Fund III, a 120 million euro life sciences VC fund investing in late-stage companies in drug development, medtech, diagnostics, and eHealth, predominantly in Europe. Vesalius portfolios includes the likes of eHealth, a Dutch-American healthcare spin-out from the University of California in Los Angeles, who develops AI-powered personalized care pathways for chronic care. Forendo Pharma, a clinical-stage drug development company focused on novel therapeutic solutions for women's health, and Sword Health, a digital musculoskeletal therapy provider, which has drawn investments from other great VC funds like Khosla Ventures and Founders Fund. Prior to joining Vesalius, Marc has started no less than 8 life sciences companies, such as Reverse Medical, which was acquired by Covidien in 2014. Marc has also been an investment manager at Bioinnovation and worked with several corporate finance boutiques focused on life sciences M&A transactions.
Welcome, Marc. Thank you so much for joining us today.
David, Andreas, more than happy to be here, and it's great that you're taking the initiative to set up a platform like that, and I'm more than happy to contribute as a first guest.
The pleasure is really all ours. And before jumping into the fray, I'd like for our listeners to have a chance to get to know you. And I know that you haven't always been about entrepreneurship and venture capital, but you actually tried your hand at professional tennis. Would you care to elaborate on that?
Yeah, happy to do so. I think I spent most of my time as a kid and as a young adult on the tennis court and tried to compete in international tournaments. Made it up to 900 in the world, which seemed to be okay and competitive. But when playing the really big guys, I was hammered down. So I think it was a good experience to also create a person that I'm today. But with that, I'm originating out of an entrepreneurial family. Both my parents ran their own companies, and when I finished my diploma thesis, which is solely an MBA, so no natural sciences background, back in 1999, most of my friends started internet companies and moved to Berlin. I was not interested in one or the other, but then more by chance started a biotech company and ran that for almost 4 years as a chief business officer, taking care of financials, which was okay. But my big love by the time was corporate development, signing deals with Bayer, Lilly, GSK and Medarex, and I continued with that. And in the last 21 years, I set up a total of 8 companies. 2 are still in the running. 1 has been sold to Covidien Medtronic. A couple of them went bankrupt. And over different positions in the industry, I was promoted to managing partner of the third fund of Vesalius. And that is what brought me to the interview today.
That is quite a background, Marc, and very interesting to hear how you took the journey that many VCs has taken from starting companies themselves, being entrepreneurs themselves, and then into the venture capital industry. But I'm very interested in hearing, how do you think that this journey affects your way of managing and running Vesalius Biocapital Fund III?
Well, I think when the offer arrived of Vesalius to join the partnership of the third fund, and I only was a venture partner for the first 2 funds, I was a bit skeptical in the beginnings. I was thinking, well, is it really a good idea to change sides of the table, become a VC investor and really change to the dark side of the table? And then I read a couple of books and discussed with my wife. And she said, well, as an entrepreneur, you were complaining for 15, 16 years, as long as I know you, about VCs. And right now, why don't you do it better? So she encouraged me to take that position. And I think being in that position for 3 years and a bit, I found it very, very interesting to work with the entrepreneurs and support them. And I think I bring a bit of a different flavor because of my previous experience as an entrepreneur, which had a lot of lows, I have to admit, but also a couple of highs. And with that, I probably bring a bit of a different perspective in the boardroom. Seeing probably a new generation arriving at the VCs today, I see more previous entrepreneurs entering the scene rather than people stepping in from the big pharma industry. And I think that is a development that has taken place in the US a longer time ago, and which is something I'm seeing in Europe just emerging. And I'm pretty sure that this will provide a fresh wind into the industry.
Yeah, Marc, that's when you talk about a fresh approach to VC, there's actually something that I believe stands out. And that's the fact, in Vesalius, that's the fact that you guys are investing across Europe. In my experience, often what we see is that VCs are focusing on their own country and seldomly go across the border and invest in neighboring countries or projects from neighboring countries. And this seems to make sense operationally, but I argue that it may limit deal flow or even access to co-investment partners. So I would love for you to elaborate a bit on why Vesalius is country-agnostic, and also what are the implications of that decision?
Yep. So as most of the other VCs, and that is true for not only life sciences, but for tech and sustainability and what you have out there, I think there is comparably a lot of money in the VC market, so meaning limited partners money, that has a geographical earmark. So that means that an investor is putting money into our fund with either heartstrings attached or a gentleman agreement that a certain amount of that money is reinvested into a certain country, which is skewing your interest in certain countries and in others not a bit in the market, and that is something I think you have to deal with in Europe. When you explain that to a US VC, for example, they don't really understand. It takes them a bit to understand why we force a company into a certain European country rather than that it remains in a certain country where they have started. And with that, I think we became a country agnostic. I think we are having deal flow from most of the European countries these days. And if you would draw a GDP chart, you would see that the strongest countries are also providing most of the deals. I think Germany is standing out here also because of the fact that we are having a Munich office here where Christian and myself are working. We're having a lot of deals from Belgium, the Netherlands, a bit less from Luxembourg because of our domicile in Brussels and the fact that our funds are located in Luxembourg. Being country agnostic has a lot of upsides. I think you are seeing a lot of good signs in, let's say, the traditional markets like France and even the Nordics, Germany. But you also have some interesting plays from more the eastern part of Europe. And in that third fund, we have the pleasure to also invest in beautiful Portugal. And we have done 2 deals there. And we're seeing a lot of interesting deals in digital health coming from there, but also in therapeutics. So I think it is absolutely a positive to be country agnostic. The operational limitations are, and you mentioned that, is probably a bit syndication. For example, not a lot of people are experienced or have money to invest in Portugal. So building syndicates initially is a bit more difficult than in other countries, for example, like Germany, where you have a lot of governmental VCs or other institutional players that have money to invest in Germany or even in Bavaria, So that makes, for example, Portuguese syndication a bit difficult. Having Portugal Ventures as the usual suspect in all the deal simplifies that a bit. But I think the case with Sword Health, where we have invested with a family office together, and then the next round was led by Kosler Ventures from the West Coast, and then it was taken up by Founders Fund, and then the 2 US VCs made the company move headquarters to New York. That is a very nice case where let's say a local investment strategy is leading to the setup of a global company.
And how, Marc, because this is very interesting and something that us starting the European VC is very interested in. So I'd love to hear more from you on how do you specifically go about developing these opportunities that are coming from all across Europe when you are physically based where you are.
Yeah. So first of all, and I think that is true for most of the European VCs in life sciences and likely tech, where I have limited knowledge. We are seeing a lot of very good deals, scientific, managerial management of these deals. And we are seeing something between 400 and 500 deals a year, which is quite a lot. And I think you have to quickly sift through that deal flow and identify attractive deals. Asking me, how do you do that? I think you have a kind of a matrix, and that is consisting of historical investors or investors that are interested in the upcoming round. How appealing is the science? Are you going for a comparably small market, for a big market? What about competition? What about IP? What about management team and all that stuff? And that is more or less independent of the country you're working in. I think for example, in Germany, you have a lot of good pharma executives, whereas in Portugal, you have a lot of driven young entrepreneurs that are extremely hungry to push their projects and their companies forward. And probably they are sometimes even a bit stubborn, I have to admit. Mm-hmm. But okay, so I think that is so we are really rarely investing in existing business plans. So once we are seeing a business plan, we are providing our 2 cents and expect the company to come back in 1, 2, 3 weeks' time and having digest that 2 cents and really think and really come up with saying either, well, what you told us is bullshit and we have to do it this way because of ABC, or most of the times they are taking our ideas and try to really bring them into their business plans. And I think that that approach of really working with management teams a couple of weeks or even months or quarters even to come up with a business plan which at least has a bit of a footprint of us, it is something that makes on one hand a lot of sense because it hopefully increases the likelihood that of a good return to our investors, but also makes a lot of sense towards the products that the companies are developing to improve patient care. And I think that is very important. We are super selective when it comes to what we are investing in. And the first threshold is whether it is addressing an unmet medical and market need. So we are not going for any generics. We are not going for Me Too products. We are not going for care facilities or services which have no or limited impact on how patients are treated. And probably coming back to my initial statement, as we are investing in therapeutics, diagnostics, medtech, and digital health, you may say, well, how is a diagnostic impacting the therapeutic intervention? It could, but most of the time, the therapeutic consequence out of a diagnostic is not really thought through in a very, let's say, detailed way. And that is what we are bringing into such game and exchange, saying, okay, so it's a nice diagnostic approach, great, but please show us how this is really differentiating the way patients are treated and what is the outcome for the patient. And I think that is the first threshold that a company has to jump over.
That's very interesting, Marc. And also, what I want to hear more about is how when you get over the first threshold and start working with them, you haven't invested yet, but these first quarters where you're working together, trying to determine whether you are a good fit and whether they agree with you on your views and vice versa. How do you go about how does it affect you that you are investing across all of Europe instead of, as I see here in Denmark, we are very physically. We spend a lot of time physically with the founders in this period. But I guess that is quite a bit more difficult when you're investing in companies far away.
Yeah, you may be right. Yes.